Okay, Rosalind, you teach English online, and I was wondering if you could. I mean, one of the big problems that people have when they start teaching is how do they find students? So I was wondering if you could shed some light on this question. I mean, how do you find students, and what are the ways that people can find students? So yeah, Rosalind, what would you say?
Okay, well, for myself, I found the initial process quite overwhelming because there were so many options.
Right.
And I did apply for a few jobs to different places and didn't hear from anybody. And eventually, went to work for a platform, a creator profile site. And while it was very slow to start, yeah, I've had a fairly steady income. It goes up and down, but I think that's anything with your own business. Um,
Sure.
yeah, so in that process, I got to know quite a lot of different options that you could have.
Hmm.
So there's basically three different ways that you can find students. You can find students by looking at companies that are actually creating packages for students and actually employing teachers. Um, these companies are great in the sense that they give you a set schedule. It's a little bit more secure, and also, most of the time they supply the material, which
Hmm.
also for
It's a
new
huge help, right? Yeah.
that is a huge help, especially if you're a little bit inexperienced like I was. But I
Hmm.
didn't get into any of those schools, so and in between in my searching, yeah. So some of the advantages with those things is that the work of attracting students is done for you, but they might pay a little bit lower than being able to set your own rates. And the other thing is you might have some really terrible, unfavorable hours depending on where you are in the
Yeah.
world. If you get into
Sure.
a Chinese school and they want you to teach in the morning, for us where I live, it would be 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. or whatever,
Mm.
something like that. So that's the package school. Then the creator profile site, it sounds absolutely wonderful, but it's still quite a lot of hard work because you advertise yourself on the profile. They've usually got a whole lot of conditions. You've got to make a video, you've got to advertise yourself, you've got to think of things to say about yourself to try and attract students. But all that's part of a learning curve. So it's actually been quite an adventure for me anyway.
Mhm.
The nice thing with these sites is you can set your own rate of pay, and as you start to become more experienced, you can slowly start giving yourself increases,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is
Which is nice.
which is
Yeah.
nice. The downside is these guys do take their cut. Depending on the
Mm.
company that you go to, it might be high, it might be low. Some of them have got some quite interesting conditions as to what commission you'll get.
Right.
So yeah, that would, but at least you have got some control there. Of course, the downside for an inexperienced teacher, you've got to figure out the material yourself, which
Yeah.
can
And
be quite hard.
definitely. And I just want to add something to that from my own experience. I think that with those sites, it does offer you this freedom of your schedule, your timetable, and
Mm,
how much you get paid. But I think that when you initially start out on those sites, very often you have to put in huge amounts of hours to figure out where the most demand is in terms of,
mm,
is it in the morning, the evening, whatever. And also, I think that some of them, like you said, they take their cut, they do take a commission. I think that a lot of these sites have kind of a structured, a tiered sort of commission
mm,
structure.
mm,
And for new
mm,
teachers, it tends to be higher. And then the more you teach, the commission comes down. So I think they are a really good option, but I think it does require some level of commitment to begin with.
mm, mm, mm. And if you're
But
looking for
yeah,
a salary, if you're looking for a salary or a specific amount of money every month, you're going to have to
sure.
slog it out until you get there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and the nice thing, another advantage is all the payment and booking and all that nitty-gritty stuff is done
Mm,
for you. You
yeah,
you know your money comes via whatever payment channel, and the bookings are done, which is
yeah,
nice. Yeah.
yeah.
And then your other option is to go freelance, which, there's a lot of people out there saying, come and learn how to be a freelancer with me and so on.
Mm.
I'm not sure whether any of those people are helpful or not helpful, or if they're just trying to make money off of poor people. But But with this, it's quite a lot of hard work. You need you need to at least get a website or a good Instagram page or a good Facebook
Mm,
page or something like that going. Um, but then you also have to make your own payment arrangements.
for sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and that could be tricky. And also you have to manage your own work. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and that's basically the three different ways you can do it. I think there are maybe a few other kind of ideas and things, but
Yeah. I mean, I
that's
would
it.
say, I think
Yeah.
that the sort of three main, just to add to that last one about going freelance, I think if you're someone who is good at social media, who has a
Mm,
background in like marketing or something, then I think that could definitely be the way to go because while it's very hard to get started, I think if it is successful,
mm,
the eventual payoffs in the end can be quite big because
yeah.
you can end up maybe with a large personal following, a good personal brand that you can advertise, you know, downloadable content to and things like this. But to get there, I think that that's probably this third option is probably going to be the longest journey from when you initially have the idea to making a stable income. I think
Yeah,
that's probably the
definitely.
longest one.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think also if you want to set up a website, that's a lot of work in the background and that can be expensive.
for sure.
It depends on your contacts or if you've got somebody who's willing to help you or what, for low pay. So that's also another thing too. So, and of
Yeah.
course, you're back to the same thing with the platforms is you got to supply absolutely everything. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so Rosalind, I know that you're busy. I know that you've got a lot of classes. Hopefully, you've got a lot of classes.
I've had a
Um,
very
so
busy week, but next week's looking very quiet.
okay. Well, I mean,
But
one.
that can change. You can go to sleep at night and wake up the next morning going, "Oh, flip, how am I going to do this?"
True. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't want to keep you for too long. I hope
Mm.
next week gets a little busier for you. Or I hope you take time off and relax. But of course, I'd like to get together with the larger group of teachers and talk
Yeah.
about these things in a bit more detail, do a bit of
Mm.
a deep dive. But yeah, I think that's a great overview for like how people can start teaching and how they can find students. So Rosalind, thanks very much
Yeah.
for joining,
Thanks, Ian.
and
It's a pleasure.
I'll see you
Okay.
soon.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.